Hi, this is Brent Grover speaking. I'd like to talk to you for a few minutes today about trends in distribution for 2013, sponsored by Advanced Distribution Software. A little bit of background about me. I'm a consultant in the wholesale distribution industry. My firm is Evergreen Consulting. We're based in Cleveland. And my background personally is that I was a wholesale distribution CEO for 20 years. So if you're a CEO or a manager at a wholesale distribution company, I've sat in your chair and I've tried to make the trains run on time every day just like you do. I've also written some books for NAW, the National Association of Wholesalers. I've written a total of 8 books about wholesale distribution management, and if that's a subject that interests you, I suggest that you take a look because we've done some good work at our firm at Evergreen Consulting, and NAW has a great deal to offer you in the way of educational materials that I suggest that you might want to know more about that. Want to talk to you first about economic uncertainty as we sit here at the end of 2012 and look ahead to the next year. There are a lot of things we, as of yet, don't know how they're going to turn out. One of them is the European debt crisis. Another one is the slowdown of the growth in Asia, both of which are affecting demand for the products that customers of wholesale distribution companies buy. To make this a little more complex, the Institute for Trends Research, an economic forecasting firm that many wholesale distributors rely upon because they are uncannily good at predicting the future. That firm is predicting a slowdown of the economy in 2013 in the latter half of the year, as if we didn't have enough to worry about already, having just come out of a difficult recessionary period. So my message to you as a wholesale distributor is, if you're like most, you're very interested in making productivity for your investments for your business that'll make your workforce more productive, and you're probably not very anxious about hiring new people right now. We see wholesale distributors in the coming year making big investments in productivity tools, including software for their companies, not so much making investments in new employment, adding to their workforce, in other words. Looking also at some positive news about 2013, Ivy Zelman, a very reliable forecaster of housing starts, is predicting that housing starts in the U.S., this is 1 to 4 family homes, projected to rise to a level of 980,000 units next year, coming off of about 700,000 this year. Obviously, that's an improvement. It's still only a fraction of the 1.5 million average since World War II. So we are seeing the housing market return. Very good news for wholesale distributors in many trade lines. So we can look ahead now to hopefully getting close to the post-World War II average sometime soon in the foreseeable future, coming off of a low of under 400,000 units only a couple of years ago. Domestic vehicle production in the U.S., that is, around 15.5 million units right now. Automobile and light truck production has been very strong, also good news for many wholesale distributors. Natural gas exploration, particularly in some parts of the country, has given a great deal of lift to the economy. So for your company's microeconomic situation, depending on what your customer segments are, what your trade lines are, and which geographic markets you participate in, the news for 2013, the outlook may be much better than that overall forecast I mentioned at the beginning of this talk. I want to mention Salesforce Demographics to you. As a wholesale distributor, you may be looking around at your Salesforce median age today and seeing that your salespeople are quite a bit older than they were 10 years ago. In fact, maybe the median age has increased by about 10 years. The reason for that in many wholesalers is that during the Great Recession, not much hiring was done. Most of the salespeople, however, who were on staff stuck around. Many of them are close to retirement age, but perhaps they can't even afford to retire. So we have a sales force which has gotten to be in many companies into their early 50s. The challenge here for us as managers and leaders of wholesale distribution businesses is that we really have an unusual situation. We have 3 generations in our workforce at the same time. We have baby boomers, we have Generation X, and we have millennials, all working side by side. The issue here is our salespeople are older in many cases than the customers whom they're calling on. So they have to adapt to not only the intergenerational relationships that are necessary in personal selling, but also the added complexity of having to adapt to a lot of new technologies. So this is a challenge for the baby boomers and the older Gen X's. There's a shortage of qualified younger candidates out there for sales positions. And the big, probably the overall challenge for the wholesale distributor sales reps is a really significant change in their role. The role that they traditionally had, which is providing information to customers, and the role also of getting orders and bringing them into the company, that has dramatically changed with the advent of multi-channel marketing. So I guess the message here is that we need to keep up with the changes going on in our industry, and our sales force is especially challenged due to the change in their role. I hear wholesale distributors often say that these days we can't just move boxes anymore. So the days of moving boxes around and really not knowing what's in them, that's pretty much over. And what I'm referring to is the demands customers are placing on us, and I see this growing in the coming year and the years thereafter. Vendor managed inventory, consignment inventory programs, just-in-time, third-party logistics providers, fourth-party logistics providers, 4PLs, where you have an outside company fulfilling orders and shipping them in your name. Also, the additional value-added services required, particularly what I would refer to as downstream converting, such as kitting, repackaging, relabeling, and also cutting to length and other work that wholesale distributors are now doing for their customers as they move downstream closer to the customer. So the message here is that we really need to keep up with these changes going on in our business. And particularly, we have to be sure that our ERP system supports the things that we need to do for our customers. So that's another change looking ahead to 2013, as I said before, and beyond. I can't, in talking about trends, I can't not mention vending machines. Vending machines still, when they first appeared in the wholesale distribution world in around 1993, some of us referred to them as candy machines, which is sort of a negative way to look at them, or tongue-in-cheek, and those days are over. I think it's fair to say that Fastenal is clearly in the lead in the placement of vending machines with their customers. In round numbers, they've increased the placements from 10,000 to 20,000 or so in the last 12 months. In the most recent quarter, about 20% of Fastenal's sales came from products that were sold through the vending machines that are placed there. So message for us as wholesale distributors, particularly those selling safety supplies, cutting tools and abrasives, fasteners, is we need to keep up, and we also need to be sure that our information technology is able to keep up with these changes. I was at a meeting recently of a large buying group in the industry called Affiliated Distributors, and the leader of that organization, Bill Weisberg, talked about something that's going on amongst his members at AD, where wholesale distributors in different lines of trade, for example, electrical supplies and plumbing, two completely separate companies, are sharing facilities whereby they're able to expand their geographic footprint by actually sharing the facilities and the personnel in those facilities to fill orders to their customers. This type of co-opetition, in addition to the traditional, for example, cooperation that we've seen, such as buying groups where buyers of products put their buying power together to leverage their suppliers, or distributors of competing products in different markets sharing inventory or even sharing customers. These are new movements towards co-opetition that is going to present yet another challenge for our management teams and for our information processing systems to handle that type of challenge. Just a word about AmazonSupply.com. It's still an active subject, even though it's been since April of 2012 that AmazonSupply.com appeared on the scene, a competitor for wholesale distributors with 500,000 products in stock in 14 different product lines, free shipping with a $50 order minimum, 2-day delivery, 365-day return privilege, phone support, charge accounts available. This has raised the bar for electronic commerce between wholesale distributors and their customers, because it's really brought the business-to-consumer type of electronic commerce into our world. Yet another set of challenges for us all, seeing companies like Grainger receiving 25% of their orders on the internet today and projecting that to be 50% within 5 years. Challenges for us as managers and leaders, challenges for our ERP systems as well. At Evergreen Consulting, we do a lot of work with strategic pricing, so I have to mention it because strategic pricing or pricing optimization is a very big topic with wholesale distributors these days. One of the reasons for that is that strategic pricing is one of the few things that management can do in a wholesale distribution business that make a big difference, a lasting difference, and it can, the results can be obtained pretty quickly. So We, as consultants, do a lot of work in strategic pricing. We see the need for it. And I also want to comment that most of the ERP systems that are out there today do not support pricing optimization tactics and strategies such as strategic pricing. So that is a challenge for wholesale distributors, whom I can honestly say I think almost everybody's interested in pricing optimization. Some have already figured it out, some are yet to do it, but one of the impediments is having an ERP system that supports that functionality. Another area that I want to mention in terms of trends in wholesale distribution, looking ahead to the coming year, is cost to serve and customer profitability. Wholesale distribution managers have become more aware in recent years of the need to measure the net profit of customers, groups of customers, products, groups of products, rather than focusing entirely on gross margin, which is our customary way of doing so, or traditional way of doing so. What's made this possible is software, analytical software and tools that enable us to come up with a pretty good approximation of the operating profit from transactions, customers, groups of customers, etc. This is also a functionality that most of the ERP systems out there do not support. However, I see in the coming years more of a trend, for example, in compensating salespeople on operating profit, not just on gross profit. So our systems are going to have to support the movement towards managing our businesses based on operating profit and not just sales or gross profit. Before we leave our forecast to look at the future, I want to mention ERP System Upgrades. The reason it's timely is that our firm did an analysis in 2012 of the status of upgrades amongst wholesale distribution companies. What I'm talking about here specifically is what version of your software are you on? And what we found is that about half of the companies in our study are using a version of the software which is not only not the current version, but of those companies, half of them are on a version which is 2 or more versions old. So I would say there's a tremendous pent-up demand amongst wholesale distributors to move towards the current version of the software that they're using, or possibly to look around at what's available in the marketplace from other vendors, that is other than the one whom they're currently working with. We found when we asked the question of those who are not current with their system, why aren't you current? The feedback we got from many of them was that it's just a difficult project, there are a lot of risks associated with it, it would be a distraction for their people. Many distributors mentioned the cost of upgrading and other reasons. Our perception as observers of the wholesale distribution industry is it's not so much the cost of upgrading that's deterring people from keeping themselves on their current version of their software. The big deterrent for many companies is that they over-modified their systems when they first put them in place some years ago. They still remember how much those modifications cost, and they realize that by going to a newer version of the same software, they're going to incur those costs all over again, and they may not significantly improve the functionality of their software. So our advice to wholesale distributors in that situation is to think very seriously about getting on the current version of your software, but also when you make that exploration, when you make that decision that it's time to move up, look around at what else is available. We think that you may find that there are software packages out there today from other vendors that incorporate many of the features that you were looking for when you heavily modified your system when you originally put it in place. And hopefully you'll be able to find some ways to fine-tune your business processes to line up with the software rather than trying to change every aspect of the software to duplicate processes in your own business, which are probably due for an overhaul anyway. So in closing, I want to thank you for a few minutes of your time. I want to remind you that some very good books are available about wholesale distribution. Some of them are written by me, and many of them are written by others. They're on the NAW website. And also, I want to mention that Modern Distribution Management, MDM.com, published my most recent book, which is about strategic planning. I suggest you take a look at MDM's website also. Thanks very much.